people could really always do the whole they were a kid or they were a baby thing and stuff like that. And it makes sense, but it's like you could literally do that in a lot of situations, or maybe any situation. It's not any different from the whole thing where people will be like, well, I'm 21 and I wouldn't date a 20-year-old because they were just 19. You could always keep going on and on with that. And then you could say a 19-year-old was just 18. Or you could say a 19-year-old is almost 20 or a 20-year-old is almost 23. I mean, you could always do that same like thing in any direction. Kind of like with the screenshots near the end of Third Invisible with the dad who was talking about my almost 17-year-old daughter's dating an almost 20-year-old, trying to manipulate the situation, which 17 and 20 still wouldn't have to be bad anyways, but it's just the games people play.
So this is going to be one of my mini videos about what I'm calling the Gerontophiles Complex, which goes hand in hand with what I call Sixth Commandment culture, and the idea that if you're not the victim, you're the bad guy. And also people just projecting their own issues onto others. Because as I've said before, most of the people that push the Gerontophile complex are of course chomos, but also especially women and girls who have been SA'd their whole life. So like women or girls who have called themselves quote unquote dating 45-year-old men and stuff like that since they were 12. And if you're dating or even just friends with people your age, it's almost like a jealousy side to it too, to where like they'll try to make you feel like you're a pedo, but I feel like it's jealousy in that they wish they didn't like make some of the decisions that they made. And I know people are going to say that this is victim blaming, but I'm just saying the situation for how it is. And obviously I'm not talking about like full-blown getting R-worded, which I mean I know people still say that it's like R-worded, but like I mean like people that more so have like a choice, like still it comes from trauma and neglect and looking for love, but like not the people who like are getting R-worded by relatives or they got R-worded walking down the street or something. The people who like sneak out the house at 3 a.m. to go run off with somebody that they met on, I don't know, Monkey or something. I can't really think of a good example right now. I don't even know if Monkey still exists, to be honest. But yeah, so people like that pretty much. And to start off, before I start reading my notes, I did look back over that situation with that girl who's one of these many people who I've met that are in this coping mechanism, which also commonly revolves around BPD from the emotional neglect and stuff from parents or complete lack of parents, which I guess really abusive parents is similar enough to having none at all. But she's also another one of the many people I've met throughout the years that have scraped up hundreds of charges from their abuse. Because as I always say, the kid victim gets charged with quote unquote CP, just like how if your parent punches you in the face, they can call the police and the police will charge you for domestic violence when you have blood dripping down your forehead. Stuff like that, because that's how the laws work, but I'm not going to get too much into that. So I looked back over the messages from the whole thing where I thought she was just doing her like usual splitting and projecting her trauma onto me, because I didn't know what she was talking about when she started like flipping out kind of. But I looked back through the messages and I was like, oh, now it makes sense. Because as I mentioned in my Why Turner Red is my favorite movie video, I talk about how like for me and others, when you're in the abuse situation, you don't really have time to like focus on, I guess, quote unquote normal things like boyfriends or I don't know, like going to the skate park, whatever in the world. But since being out here, I've had, well, I won't say I've had time, like that's what I spend my time doing all the time, but like since I've been out here, I've thought more about that. Although I'm still not around people my age, so that's still kind of whatever, but I've still like just seen boys in the store or just different places at the skate park, and then I've thought about it more, and that's what I was about to go into. But before I could even get into like how now that I'm not in like a constant torture situation and focusing on trying to be the hero for me and other people around me, now I have time to think about that. Before I could even say that, all I said was boys are cute, and then she went on like a rampage, and I didn't know what she was talking about until like it was like the other day when I went back through the messages, and I was like, oh, that's where she started acting weird. And she was like, you can't say things like that. And it's like, what do you think I'm talking about? 5-year-olds? And honestly, well, I still don't like it. Stuff like that actually makes it make more sense to me why some people, or the 1% of people that have like healthy enough family systems and their kids aren't being like traumatized and tortured, I get why they don't want their kids around a lot of people, because most people are really traumatized, and I get why they don't want their kids around traumatized people, because sometimes their mind goes straight to things like this. And then of course this girl was also like, well, I wasn't even talking about younger people, but she was saying not everybody likes people that are younger than them. But it's also like somebody could say as well, not everybody likes people that are way too old for them, that are decades and generations and eons older than them, and light years. But it's still so weird that her head had to like go wherever it went. I don't even know what age popped up in her mind, but it's just like, I guess maybe she wanted me to say men are cute, but I don't know, because that sounds weird to me. So I don't know, but it's like, that could also go into why like really talking to certain people and stuff like that really just isn't worth it. But that could be its own video, which I still do have my re-upload about the whole my old abusive friend Addie situation, which this girl isn't Addie, but I feel like that is a good video that also goes into like why getting over, I don't even know what to call it. Let me not go into that because I don't want to be way somewhere else. But yeah, it kind of makes me think as well about that story from that dude who was like, his dad was a pedo, and he wasn't allowed to have friends growing up because nobody wanted their kids around. Nobody wanted their kids to play with the S8 kid. Because unfortunately, nobody cares. They're just going to bully you and talk junk about you from the situation. But sometimes they'll still make sure they keep their kids from around you. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I could see why, but that's like a bad situation. But stuff like this whole quote-unquote conversation makes me think about why people are like, well, why some people are like that. And why they just rather for their kids to not be around you in the first place. Because the last thing most people and healthy parents who actually pay attention to what their kids have going on and who they talk to want is somebody telling their kid that they're a quote-unquote pedo for having friends their age and stuff like that, or dating people their age and not dating 50-year-old men. And unfortunately, due to the bullcrap quote-unquote minor crisis and America's very much created in false moral panic, this is the heavily pushed mindset that younger people getting with people their age is being a quote-unquote pedo. So this goes in to this right here, which is mostly going to be me talking about a video, but there's plenty of screenshots that I'm going to mention. But a video where a lady was talking about how a 24-year-old woman was dating a 19-year-old male, and quote-unquote, this is the summary, quote-unquote, she's a pedo getting with babies because there's a one in front. And so this could go literally in either direction. Now, probably a lot of people wouldn't do this age gap, but I still feel like, well, a lot of the things that people are calling quote-unquote age gaps aren't age gaps anyways, but the age gap is typically, maybe like more than, I would say, more than 3 years younger or older. It's kind of age gap, but some people say 4 or 7, but it's a lot of mess with that. And as far as the 7 thing, I don't know. I feel like that really depends, but more so for younger people, I would say like 3 years younger, older, more than that is kind of like age gappy. Maybe 4. But anywho, this makes me think back to another situation I seen. 24-year-old male dating a 48, 49-year-old woman. Now, his parents didn't like the relationship or the age gap at all, which makes complete sense. And people were saying, oh, wait, I forgot to say, the girlfriend unalived him. And so people were saying he was just a baby and he was just a kid. Now, the baby thing, I get why people would do that, but that's like a stretch. The kid thing, that makes sense, especially like with this age gap. Now, of course, some people will still say, just like with the 19-year-old, he's a grown man. Although I will say, how much more grown is a 24 than a 19-year-old, more so. And all that really depends on the person and like how stunted they are, how much trauma they had, and different things like that. But anywho, my point of mentioning the whole 24-year-old, 48-year-old or whatever situation is that people can always do the whole that was a baby, that was a kid thing. And it's all really biased, which I talk about the bias with the idea of what is a kid and what is a child all the time. Because it's very much biased. America locks up more youth and quote-unquote children than any developed nation. And we're also the #1 destination for human trafficking victims of all ages for various different things. Because people think that human trafficking and prostitution is the same thing. No, it's not. And like I said in the my reaction to Corona's message video, anybody that's telling you it's the same thing is either purposely lying to you or they're ignorant. Although there is like pros-traf, but lower level prostitution and trafficking isn't the same thing. And there's so many different types of trafficking anyways. But yeah. Anywho, we're the #1 destination, but all of a sudden we want to act like we're like, we want to push our bullcrap, fake morals onto the world about quote-unquote age gaps. And what else did I have to say with that? Okay, next bullet point. 19 in boy years is really 14 because boys mature slower. So it's the same as 17 and 13 or 14 and 10 or something like that. The screenshot's in there, but they may not be word for word, but it was something like that. And for one, if 19 in boy years is really 14, then 24 in boy years is like 19. But either way, this is complete bullcrap. And as I've said plenty of times before, women like this, they push narratives that actually help real chomos and pedos and aphibophiles and hebophiles and stuff like that. Because this mindset, the whole boys mature slower thing, so girls should get with somebody way older than them or something like that, that's literally an ancient philosophy pretty much that's been used to normalize pedoism for always, pretty much, for forever and a day. This is the same rhetoric, which is why you'll see 100-year-olds marrying 8-year-old girls and stuff like that. This same idea right here. And I mean, sure, typically 8 to 16 was considered a good age, especially when it comes to the white supremacist philosophies, to essay boys, but like, I know more so, well, yeah, at least I know like in Greek and Rome, when they were like essaying boys who had started puberty and not doing full-blown pedoism, because full-blown pedoism would be attraction to people who haven't started puberty yet. They would typically like boys who were like 16 plus. And I wonder if that has something to do with like the whole boys mature slower thing. But either way, that idea literally comes from and is rooted in actual pedoism. Next bullet point. I'm calling it the Bridgerton Complex, which Bridgerton is a show that's completely about essaying girls. I remember my older neighbor's sister she had watched some of it, but then once she realized what it was about, she was like, yeah, never mind. But that's Netflix for you. I don't know if it still comes on. I know when I was in Cali and I would go to the youth resource center, this one staff who was always talking about she specialized in child care, quote unquote, because she worked at the youth resource center. She once said that her favorite show was Bridgerton, which is very interesting. But Bridgerton Complex, which also okays actual Paris, the Lima, essay, pederasty, hebephilia, ephebophilia, if I'm saying them right. The idea that girls mature faster. And then I don't remember what this is called. It's definitely not a bracket, but let me just keep going. Because they're forced to cook, clean, quote unquote please a man, whatever that means. Not play in the dirt, be good, while boys are sometimes coddled and taught to be predators and get away with everything. Sometimes, which this is common in every culture, but anywho. Girls mature faster, so they should be with older guys or they're a pedo. Or pretty much the usual thing with Gerontophiles. If you're not getting with people decades older than you or years older than you, then you're a quote unquote pedo. And you notice this is really only being said to youth, because as I said before, people really just don't want youth to get with people their age, because people will see 16 and 23 or 16 and 27 and they'll be like, yeah, that's okay. Or they'll see 18 and 54 and say nothing. But then in these certain situations where people are close in age or literally the same age pretty much, people have, they just go crazy in the U.S. And that's why a lot of people are saying in every other country, the age of consent is 16, which honestly it is here too. It might be lower than that. But they also say that in Latin America and Europe and other places like that, people wouldn't bat an eye if somebody was 17 with an 18-year-old or 16 with an 18-year-old or 17 with a 20-year-old and stuff like that. But in America, due to this bullcrap quote-unquote minor crisis, which as I always say, minor is a bullcrap term that's used to okay abuse, people are pushing their fake weird moral weird ideas on everybody else. And it's funny because you notice that in the countries where they say that these things aren't seen as problems, they still have better relationships going on. Because people will say, Americans are bragging about being able to get with younger people, even people their age or older in their 40s and 50s and 30s. But in other countries, when they see conversations like this, they're imagine even still dating and not being married in your 40s and 50s. But Americans don't even think that far. It's in these other places where they don't see these things as bad, they seem to have better relationships going. Obviously not everybody, but they still get married, they still have their intergenerational family systems, the great grandma, the grandpa, the grandma, the dad, the kids, the siblings, the grandkids all live in one house together sometimes. But it's America's really individualistic, and that also goes into why the dating culture is bullcrap anyways, because as I always say, Western dating is prostitution. So I think the bigger picture with it all is that the dating bullcrap needs to stop anyways, because it's just getting with somebody for a place to stay, emotional support, sexual addiction, and something to eat. That's all it really is. Regardless of how old the people are in the quote-unquote relationship, it's still some bullcrap more often than not. But of course it always doesn't have to be, which these Gerontophile people seem to not get, that not everything has to be abusive and manipulative in some form or fashion, but everything is getting taken advantage of to them. Not that they even care about people getting taken advantage of, because I've mentioned before, and people should already know, these same women who project this type of trauma on other people and act like everything is being a quote-unquote pedo will call a girl especially fast and grown in the HOE for getting supposedly taken advantage of or actually taken advantage of by somebody who's way too old for them. Just I noticed since being back in the South, any old dude or grown man who's in a 100-mile radius from me or that I'm seeing saying hey to or anything is assumed to be my older boyfriend that I'm using for money or being taken advantage of by quote unquote, and then that makes me a quote unquote hoe and all types of stuff. Oh, I forgot, I'm supposed to be spelling it out, but that's how people think. Really, people don't even really care about who's being victimized. It's just everything is really a lot of talk. Nobody actually wants to really put in the work, but I'm not going to really get into that. So, I think I said everything I needed to say with that. Oh, yeah. And my funny things that have happened since running away / being homeless playlist, which just wasn't the funny part, as I always have to say, because I don't want people to like get confused. But I also mentioned a situation back when I was at the Catholic Storm Emergency Shelter in NC back in January. I met this 19-year-old who was telling me that she wanted to like be a quote-unquote older role model for me, and I was like, I don't know. But anywho, she was being full-blown R-worded by dudes at the shelter, and these two bitter 40-year-old women were like making fun of her, spreading rumors about her, saying she was a HOE, the SLUT, and she was fast and grown and all that stuff. And she'd even got pregnant by one of the R-worders, but another dude ended up shoving an edible down her throat to try to assault her, and then the baby ended up passing away. It was a lot of horrible stuff with that. But those two bitter 40-year-old women that were talking about beating her up because she was getting R-worded, they're these same types of women more often than not. They're these same Gerontophiles. And so, next bullet point. Then also, depending on like how bad the food is where you live, you may start puberty even younger, especially girls. And I think this has something to do with like how the hormones are thrown off in general. Like the girls and women have high testosterone, and a lot of the dudes have high estrogen, which there's a lot of stuff behind that. But that can make you start puberty earlier, but then also just stop at some point, and then you're still underdeveloped even though you started early. And it seems like boys start puberty way later, and I don't know if it's always been like that, but that's what it seems like to me, but I don't really know. I know for girls in the U.S. it's typically 8, and a lot start their period by 10, but I know like girls from other countries often don't start their periods till like way older than 10. Like, crap, I've even heard of 15 and stuff like that, which is interesting. Next bullet point. The minor crisis is just showing how demented, twisted, and confused Americans are. The number one destination for I already said some of that, but I'll just keep reading. Victims, yet we're pushing out our dysfunctional ideas on quote-unquote age gaps, which these narratives are all pushed by essayed women who are Gerontophiles and have been quote-unquote dating 50-year-old men since 12, and actual predators, which these women are also predatory themselves, because nothing's more predatory than running around chasing somebody saying that they're a quote-unquote pedo because they're not making the same mistakes that you've made. These women are predators themselves. These people know nothing about healthy or safe relationships and dynamics, and in the end, dating is prostitution anyways. Now, I will say, as I always say, most people have been essayed and or had early sexual exposure just because, the hypersexuality agenda has been pushed in media and children's cartoons and the music for really always, since Disney or whoever first started pushing out the animations. They always had hypersexuality subliminal messages, although it's obviously not subliminal anymore. I would honestly say that, like, once the Playboy thing, before the Playboy thing, whenever the whole Shirley Temple stuff, around that time, that's when, like, the paraphilias and perversions became even more really overt. But I don't even know if I could really say that, because America was built off of a sodomy, MK Ultra rituals anyways. I can't really speak for anywhere else, although I know, like, in Europe, they have the same mess going on pretty much. Like in Scandinavia and some other places in Europe, you can like date your pets, and I'm pretty sure you can do that in America as well, which is why I get confused when like the animal lovers say that it's like a bad, it is obviously a bad thing. It's like bestiality, but now they call it zoophilia. But it's like, people say that it's illegal, but I don't think that's illegal. I think that hasn't been illegal in a very long time. But anywho, I really wanted to find this one comment, but I couldn't find it, where somebody was like, I wouldn't date anyone of any age because they're all stupid. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of issues with that, and obviously some paraphilias, but like, I could kind of get what they mean. And then I did put in the everyone's being used unless you're useless comment, which that's definitely true. And like I keep saying, that dude obviously is one of the people to watch out for, and he's one of these risky people. But what he said was 100% true. And as I always say, there's paraphilias on both sides. Add in, comment mentioned, quote unquote, these are the same people that watch corn with barely 18-year-olds. Now, of course, corn shouldn't exist. There's some people abuse imagery, and a lot of people in there are kidnapped and all types of stuff, and it's all rituals and thelema, but that comment was 100% true, and I'm pretty sure that screenshot's in here. These same people, well, this comment was from a video about, I think it was from that dude's video about the issue of predator catcher channels, but this is true though. These same people will like be sitting around waiting for somebody to turn 18, which there's a lot of screenshots about stuff like that as well. And it's like, America has 18 obsession, that's the real issue, and it's like, once age of consent is done away with again, like, these people are going to be quiet. They're going to be completely quiet. And I also believe, and I've always believed, that a lot of people are going to leave the alphabet community because most of those people have been edited or been abused in some form or fashion. There's also like stuff coming out that like really they're all neurodivergent, and that's why like they don't really feel like they identify with either gender, which there's a I have a playlist about anointed, prophetic, autism, etc., and there's a video in there made by this one psychologist who talks about this I don't even know if it's really a theory because it makes a lot of sense that a lot of these people are neurodivergent. They're being taken advantage of by the medical system and being made more confused. And of course there's still the SA side and the generational Marine Kingdom spirits, but of course most people that fall into like really any type of sexual addiction or paraphilias are often anointed and prophetic people anyways, just like how Jezebelic or quote unquote narcs often have a lot of paraphilias and are on the DL and stuff, but a lot of people with the Jezebel spirit who are high-ranking abusers are anointed or prophetic themselves, so it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, anywho, what was I getting? Oh yeah, a lot of people are going to probably leave the alphabet community once the age of consent is completely done away with, and chomoism is finally openly admitted to be okay, like it's always been seen as okay, really. And like, people don't really seem to get that when people know that you have nobody that gives a crap about you to protect you, everybody becomes a predator, like literally. And I don't even just mean in a sexual sense, like enablers, flying monkeys, the Lucifer effect, all people can become predatory in one way or another when you're seen as somebody who doesn't have anybody that gives a crap about you, and people don't get that. So like, so many people are already chomos and just predatory in different forms and fashions, and people don't get that because maybe they're protected or they just don't leave the house. Anywho, these are the same types of people, like the guy who would chase me around asking me if I was 18 yet, who was in his mid to late 40s, and he also liked my friend who was 26 to 27 at the time. And then that goes into another thing, which I've said since I was 10. Even if you feel like you're not the victim in a relationship where you're dating somebody or quote unquote dating someone who's too old for you, your kids or your kids' friends are going to be the victim. Because people will say, oh, well, 26, 27 is a grown woman and all of that, but it's like, people who go lower are always going to want to go lower. Like, the same person that'll chase somebody around asking them if they're 18 yet, it's the same person who will get with a 27-year-old or a 30-year-old or whatever at 60 or 70 or whatever in the world. And he would stalk us and all types of stuff. But I remember on this one specific situation where I was like at the park with this lady, and I was on some spinning thing, and then he saw us and his eyes lit up and he got really, really excited, and then he walked over to spit game and play mind games. But anywho, people like this or these types of abusers often do the paranoid about your age thing, which is pretty much where like somebody's either treating you funny or they don't really want you around because they're quote unquote paranoid about your age. And it's like, these are the same 18 obsession people, which I'm not really going to get back into that because it's kind of hard to explain, and I think it's about to start raining anyways. As I've mentioned before, women who are gerontophiles, or people in general who are gerontophiles, typically never stop being gerontophiles, especially because it also, aside from like trauma and neglect, which I mean, yeah, I guess this goes into the neglect thing, they're looking for like a parent figure, and commonly a dad, in like older people, so they want to date somebody and have like a dad or a mom at the same time, which is a common trauma symptom, which is where the whole daddy mommy stuff and the BDSM, DDLG, SA, incest, little DID or fake DID type mess comes from, which also goes back to corporal punishment and whoopings as well. But anywho, these types of people never stop being gerontophiles, and so they'll often do the somewhere from 24 to 39 age gap. And I know like a lot of people don't consider this a bad thing, and that's why I said before, they never stop being gerontophiles. They just eventually get to an age where the age gaps that they get in aren't seen as bad, or where other people don't see them as bad. So like 25, 38, 20, 26, 30, 26, 40, I don't know. Like typically somewhere from 24 to 39. Of course it can be way bigger than that, but that's a really common age gap. And like often people who are 35 will say the youngest that they'll date is like 28. And I mean, I don't really know what to say about it, but my point with that is that they never stop being gerontophiles. That's the main point. Next bullet point. Will quote unquote adopt and traffic people 18 plus and claim under 18 is too young because really they don't want to get quote unquote in trouble, which just goes back to the abuser paranoia. Abuser paranoia is a term that I made during, well actually I think before, but especially during my abuse evidence videos I would talk about this pretty often. Abuser paranoia is where even though they know that nobody gives a crap and nobody's going to save you, nobody is going to help you, they have this like idea that maybe there's somebody you're secretly talking to that's going to help you escape. There's somebody that you secretly know or sneak to go see that's going to help them get put in jail or help you get a court case or a lawyer or whatever in the world, and just different things like that. They often have abuser paranoia. And the reason that they rather trap people 18 plus and adopt people 18 plus is because they know that like, since that's a legal adult, typically the parents can't fight get their kid brought back by the police or something, and so they can traffic that person easier because they're a legal adult pretty much. So like these same people will be like 16 or 17 is way too young, and that's too young for me because I'm 40, and it's like, well, 18 is way too young for you as well. But the real thing is that they just rather go for people that are 18 because it's a little less likely, well, I mean, it's not likely that anybody will care and that they'll get in trouble, quote unquote, anyways, but it's less likely that they'll get in trouble if they just get people who are legal adults. That's why even some will go for like 21, 25 and stuff like that. And it's weird that like predatory people are willing to do this, but like people sometimes say the 18 plus are really typically anything that's older than like 8 is too old to be adopted. But people say that 18 is too old to be adopted, but it's like it's easier to adopt somebody who's like an emancipated 14 plus year old or like an emancipated or legal adult really 18 plus year old, because you don't have to worry about like fighting an abusive parent who's claiming that they care so much about their kid to sabotage them, because they don't want anybody to like adopt their kids so they can like go to school and all that stuff and get a job. They want their kid to be stuck either in the abuse with them or stuck homeless. So it's easier to adopt somebody who's like already a legal adult. But like a lot of people, due to the 18 obsession and also them being still sexual predators themselves, will be like 18 is grown or 16 plus is grown and stuff like that, because people are just really weird. And so yeah, that's something I could throw in because that's really interesting. It actually goes in the video I want to make about how really adoption, people don't really want to adopt, which is why people typically don't. People just want to foster. They just want to like hold you captive to make themselves look good and feel like they're a good person while you save up money, and then they throw you out and they never see you again and you never see them again, and then eventually you go into a deep depression and whatever happens after that happens. But anyhow, people don't really want like to adopt kids or family or whatever. They just want to foster people, which is really just a form of using people and being a let me help you lunatic, if you ask me. Oh wait, no, I forgot something. And then also in one of the LA documentaries about Children of the Night Shelter that was funny enough funded by Chomo Playboy but was shut down, you'll see that like people who have been getting pimped out or trafficked like since they were 12 and 16 and 10 and stuff, once they turn 18, the police legally, or well, not even the police, it wasn't even the police doing it, it was like, I think it was other people, but the quote-unquote helper people can't do anything to like really make the 18-plus-year-old get away from their abuser. So they just have to leave them, and they just can get like whoever's under 18 out the car and take them back home. So they get quote-unquote help by being taken from one abuser and sent back to abusive family. Here they had a youth shelter though, so I guess it was kind of different, but still, the point is, that's how it goes pretty much. So that's why some people rather just like kidnap and traffic stuff people 18 plus, or people who are emancipated, or foster kids and stuff like that. The next bullet point will tell abuse victims 16, 18 plus to stop complaining and be good and listen to their parents, or quote unquote just leave because you're grown. This goes into the whole 18 obsession and the grownification, because it pretty much goes two ways: the adultification and grownification, and then the infantilization and the coddling. Which infantilization isn't the same thing as coddling. It's really an abuse tactic, but
just like a dude told me at about 15, he hates how people raise kids these days. They either abuse and traumatize them, or they coddle them so much that they're not prepared for the real world.
Next bullet point: drinking ages 15 to 16 are non-existent in other countries. And I say this because another thing similar to the 18 obsession in America is like people saying people shouldn't be able to do this and that till 21. The age of consent should be 21. The age of majority should be raised to 25 or 26, or people shouldn't be able to use this site till 28, like that screenshot about Pump.Fun and Solana in my I think it's in the beginning of my Why Turning Red is My Favorite Movie video. Ageism is a really big issue, but it all revolves around bullcrap laws and false foundations. I mean, like, you're an adolescent from 9 to like 32 at the least. And you could just be stunted or stunted longer if you have a lot of trauma and brain damage from abuse and psychotropics. So that could be whatever. So it's like, I mean, should the age of consent be 32? But it's like nobody's going to go by it because laws aren't enforced anyways, because the laws aren't real. I talk about it and I call it hidden menu items. Laws are really just hidden menu items. Realistically, SA, it's not only legal, but it's not seen as a violent crime either, which is why grown people, at least fully grown people, don't get charged or go to jail for it, but youth and kids do. But that's because it's like a hidden menu item, and it's really not illegal anyways, and laws aren't real. But people don't get that. They think that just like arguing about the age of consent and what that should be would help somebody. And then raising the age of majority to 25 would just do nothing but funnel a lot of people back into abuse situations who are already here spending their time laying low, or who have already spent years of their life laying low and all that stuff. And still, you're a federal minor till 26, so there's still that side. And next bullet point: these same people act as though so much changes in one day from 17 to 18 due to laws. And then something else I could throw in, going back to the whole or one of the screenshots in what I mentioned with the thing I've said since I was 10 about how your kids and your kids' friends are going to fall victim. So I know there's one screenshot where somebody says that they like smaller women, and so they go for Asian women because they're often like 100 pounds and really short. That's paraphilia in the act. This type of person is using you as like a placeholder for what they really want. This even goes back to something I mentioned before. People will get with people that are 18 or look young or really small because of health issues and stuff like that, and are really underdeveloped because they're attracted to underdeveloped and younger people, obviously. And I'm not saying that like everybody that gets with somebody who's smaller is like this, but obviously like this dude is one of these predatory people who's a trauma. What they are really doing is they're using you to pretend that they're getting what they really actually want. They'll be doing sexual stuff with you, and in their mind they'll be telling themselves that this is a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old or a 23-year-old or something like that. Just like I'm in one of the first interviews from with Noah from Software Underbelly when she was like 11 or 12. Or maybe I think she was 14 then, actually. The abuser was asking her how old she was, and she said that she lied and said she was 16. And he said, just say that you're 10. And she was like, no. And he was like, just say that you're 10. And that's how these types of people are. In their mind, they're pretending that they're getting what they really actually want, which is somebody who's way too young for them. And I used an example before, which is somebody will cheat on you, and then they'll tell you, I wasn't cheating because, well, I was cheating on you, I thought of you. Then I completely forgot this. The screenshot about the whole traveling partner thing. I go over a situation that revolves around this same screenshot actually in my The Downfall of Mini Starts Young playlist with the whole Slab City thing and the Nate dude and all that. This person said that when they first became a vagabond, or in general became homeless at 17, their road dog was 26 and they were taken advantage of. But now, or really once they turned 18, because I don't believe that she really necessarily just met this person at 20, which, crap, I mean, I'm pretty sure she was talking to him before she turned 20, which that's a whole other side thing, but anywho, once you turn 18, then your road dog is 36, and that's not getting taken advantage of anymore. And it's like, what's really the difference? Like, the 17 and 26 was less bad, in my opinion, than the 18 and 30, whatever, the 20 and 36. I feel like that's honestly worse. And so it's just like, just this mindset that due to the 18 obsession, once you're 18, like, sexual predators are no longer sexual predators, and if I'm even hearable at all. This could also be used in my next video. This is also true, and I feel like the second comment actually kind of proves that people are maturing later, even though they say it's not true, because they kind of go over the fact that people are coddled. Although still, the reality is that people are traumatized, abused, and infantilized, and then the coddling is a side thing with a separate type of family system. But anywho, there's some weird thought, well actually that's not even really the thing I wanted to read. Although people are maturing much later than we used to, so there's that. And this even goes back into the reality that teenagers, and really anybody who's 10 plus, but especially 13 plus, aren't children. Anybody who's 14 to 16 is a man or a woman. But people have been so trapped in infantilized to keep them in abuse situations or just act like they're not as capable as they are, and it causes a lot of issues. And this is why especially in the West, like, people are pretty stunted. I mean, people won't even let their 20-year-olds and 18-year-olds and 10-year-olds and stuff, and even 7-year-olds cook because, quote unquote, they may burn the house down. A kid can do whatever you teach them to do. A 5-year-old could drive if you teach them. A 4-year-old could drive if you teach them. But people have become really warped, and this is why nobody can do anything for themselves. And as much as people want to run around saying, I'm independent, and that's why I'm not broke, and the different things that people say, if you only know how to survive off the government system, and you can't go out in the woods and hunt, you're not independent. But that's a whole nother video. But anyhow. Teenagers are not children, and realistically, human beings are built to try to survive in any situation. We're not built or wired to accept death. So yes, if you throw like a kid out in the woods, they will survive. And this can go into my next video because I'm going to talk about Southern culture and how they act like street kids can't exist. Because people are so used to their Jezebelic mom and Jezebelic grandma and whoever else holding them captive in the family system and not being allowed to leave and try to do anything for themselves until 40 plus. So you're held captive your whole life and told that you can't survive without your abuser. and you're not allowed to leave and get a job or go to school or any of that till 40. And by then it's about too late anyways, or at least that's how a lot of people will feel. Because their health is probably bad, they've been torn apart, etc., etc. But all these laws are put in place to hold people captive in abuse, and they don't benefit anybody. So my next video, I'm going to go into, or at least I think I already made a video talking about this, but I'm going to go into how people or certain people feel like there's no way that I'm younger than 38 or something, because of this weird mindset that people have that street kids can't exist because you can't take care of yourself under 35. But when I'm in places that are used to street kids, people will often assume that I'm 11 or 12, which I'm not. I tell people I'm 25 anyways, but then of course there's also the whole not in my America, that doesn't happen in America, that only happens in third world country stuff, because people think that throwing people in prison or sending them back home takes away the fact that they're homeless and not safe.